Games this week. A rematch of the NFC Championship game in Green Bay. Since the start of last season, Aaron Rodgers has thrown 3 interceptions in 2 games against Seattle. For perspective, he's thrown just 4 interceptions in 17 games against all other opponents. Now, without Kam Chancellor, in Week 1, Seattle allowed their most completions and yards on passes, thrown 15-plus yards downfield in the last 3 years. The Pack are 3.5-point favorites. Stephen A., who you got?
I'm rolling with that bad man.
I know it.
Aaron Rodgers.
Shocking.
They're at Lambeau Field. They're in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Get the jersey out.
And more importantly, in all seriousness, Skip, all joking aside, I think Seattle's going to struggle without Kam Chancellor. I think this is the week that they decide that we know what, we got to find a way to work this out. I think Kam Chancellor's banking on it. I haven't spoken to him recently, but I think he's banking on it because once Seattle loses this week, he's going to need to get back. Somehow, some way, whether it's him or whether it's them, somebody's got to make the first move and get Kam Chancellor back. And I think it's going to be because the Seattle Seahawks are going to be 0-2. After losing in St. Louis last week, they go to Lambeau Field this week. Obviously, they don't have Jordy Nelson. We understand that. But James Jones, a familiar face to Aaron Rodgers, somebody he's thrown 34 touchdowns to in his career, came back to Green Bay after being let go by the Giants and not lasting in Jones. He showed out last week. You still have Randall Cobb. You still have Eddie Lacy. You still have the offensive line that you have, and you still have the baddest man in the NFL as far as I'm concerned, and that dude, Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. And so when you take that into account and you look at this defense, which is still good, but clearly not itself without Kam Chancellor, devoid of the mystique, devoid of the intimidating factor, devoid of just the aura that the Legion of Boom has been known to have the last couple of years. I don't think that you go into Green Bay and win this game. I think that I don't think that Kam Chancellor is going to be a priority in terms of getting him back just because Seattle is going to lose. I think for the second week in a row, the Seattle Seahawks are going to give up plus 30. I think the Green Bay Packers drop at least 33 points on the Seattle Seahawks this weekend. I'm picking Green Bay 33, Seattle 27, because I think Russell Wilson.
You got a 27.
Well, you got beast mode. You got beast mode. You got Russell Wilson, you've got Lockett and Jimmy Graham, Baldwin and those boys. That's why I believe against this Green Bay Packers defense, they may not break, but they bend entirely too much. Whether Clay Matthews is going to be on the outside or the inside at the linebacker spot, you know, they did lose 2 corners, even though they still got Sam Shields back there. I'm just of the mindset that they're going to bend. They're not going to break, but they're going to bend enough for Seattle to get its share of points. But this defense is not going to be able to stop that bad man that is Aaron Rodgers, even though they didn't look great last week against Chicago offensively. I think on their home turf, in their home opener, Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers offense shows up, and they drop 33 on Seattle. They win this game 33-27.
Why are you smirking?
I like your pick. I'm going to go with your pick and then some. I'm going to go Green Bay 30, Seattle 17. But I got to tell you, up front, Aaron Rodgers better be that bad man that he is. He better not be just bad against another NFC West team because he's lost 5 straight games to the NFC West.
I think he's aware of that.
He better be good instead of that bad, you know, just really bad man that he's been, especially in the second half at Seattle last year in the NFC Championship game. If he stinks it up again in this game, I'm going to be a holy terror sitting in this seat on Monday. I'm going to unleash on the bad man that is Aaron Rodgers. So he better not let me down this time because I'm all in on Aaron Rodgers. But you know what? We picked a lot of games for a lot of years on this show. And I will say, there's this little voice way back in the back of my head saying, careful, careful. This is the one game where everybody is saying, it's Green Bay all day, right? Isn't it the kind of game it's shaping up like
that? Devil or angel voice, that's the question.
I truly only believe that's the case because of the absence of Kam Chancellor.
Okay, I get it. But sometimes games are too good to be true where Everybody says it's going to be this way because we all know Seattle's dissension racked. And we even had Marshawn's mom going after Darrell Bevell saying he should be fired.
She wrote and modified her position.
She modified.
Just a touch.
And she really knows what she's talking about.
She didn't take it back, but she modified it. She softened it a little bit.
She claims she does not talk football with her son, even though she has attended every one of her son's games going back to age 8. So I think she really knows her football. I don't disagree with her position. I disagree with her tweet or Facebooking about it.
Right. I don't believe for 1 second that she does not talk football with her son, because any woman that talks sports is not going to stop just because your son is playing on the team. You're going to talk football with him because he's on the team.
That's a whole other issue. So now we have Michael Bennett, a Seattle Seahawk, openly admitting we miss Cam, and it builds in a locker room excuse whereby you can go lose this game at Green Bay and say, well, like we said, we just didn't have Cam. And you know, it's the truth what you were saying. It's like psychologically, I'm not saying they're going to throw the game, but there's a part of your psyche that hopes you do go lose the game, so it will force the issue and back Cam will come next week, like you just said. So something in the back of your mind is saying, it's not that big a deal if we actually lose this game. This defense gave up 34 points at St. Louis to Nick Foles. To Nick Foles, really? So it's problem on top of problem on top of problem. And you would say that Aaron Rodgers owes his team one after that second half. Remember, they're up 16-0 at half. They're up 19-7 at Seattle with 10:58 left in the NFC Championship game. And they blew that because Aaron Rodgers was awful in the second half by his high standards. You have to admit that.
By his high standards, absolutely.
He was awful. So it's like, I got to make up.
Russell Wilson was awful, too.
He was.
A long period of time.
Long period of time.
At one point in time, his QBR was like 5.
I agree.
If I remember correctly.
I love QBR, too.
Yep.
You know, I mean, come on, they wasn't doing anything.
Okay, so at home, I love this stat. Aaron Rodgers has thrown 512 straight passes at Lambeau without an interception. That's extraordinary. It goes all the way back to week 13 of 2012.
Man.
Okay.
He's an extraordinary quarterback.
Well, I don't want to see any this time against this defense. I don't want to see 2 picks or 3 picks.
It's so hard for you to pick
I know.
A-Rod.
Well, I'm just saying.
You're still conflicted.
A-Raj. We can't compare him to Alex Rodriguez, right?
Yeah.
You got to put a G in there. Just
drop the G.
For his sake, right? But he did just lose his right tackle in practice, Brian Bulaga.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big deal. It is. I mean, it's your starting
Not as big as losing the left tackle, but the right tackle is important for Aaron Rodgers, no question.
So, you know, I say, wow, really? Could this be the flip-flop of what everybody is thinking? No, it can't be. So I have conviction with my pick. I think it will be decisive by Aaron Rodgers, with James Jones.
Well, you got to remember, I'm decisive about Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
I think he's the best. I don't think I've ever seen anybody throw a football like he throws a football.
Except for Tom
The flip
Brady.
side, no, not except for Tom Brady.
Oh,
I don't feel that way.
Oh.
I don't feel that way.
More athletic than Tom Brady.
Absolutely. But the flip side is that defensively, Green Bay has always been suspect to me. Always been suspect to me. You also have to remember that Mike McCarthy is no longer calling the plays offensively. He delegated those duties to somebody else. So there may be an adjustment period or whatever. We don't know. That may have had something to do with what
You making
transpired.
excuses now? No?
No, I'm not.
I hope not.
I'm simple.
Because I don't need any excuses
Well, if
over
I
here.
had an excuse, Skip, I wouldn't have gave my score.
Okay.
See what I'm saying? That's why I don't have an excuse.
But your
First thing I
score
did
is
was put
pretty
out the
close.
score. Well, I think it's going to be close because I don't believe in Green Bay's defense. But I do believe in Aaron Rodgers. And as a result of that, I'm picking them to win at Lambeau Field. This game was in Seattle. I would not have picked Green Bay.
Just a quick question. How is it that Aaron Rodgers, the bad man that he is, has lost 5 straight games to the NFC West? How could that be? I mean, that's inexplicable to me.
I will say this.
It's like
I will say this.
incomprehensible.
Well, let me
I think
say
it
this
might be the team as a whole, the defense.
We
can't
give him that pass.
I can't explain. Listen, I can tell you this. The defenses in the NFC West are customarily tough. And they usually have a running game, or they're usually very, very physical against that defense. Whether it be San Francisco being coached by Jim Harbaugh at the time, with Colin Kaepernick as somebody to contend with for that defense. If it's Arizona with Ellington, with Carson Palmer, if it's St. Louis that's beating you up, which they have the tendency to do. when you go up against the NFC West, you got to be ready to play a man's game. You really, really do.
Okay.
I'll give you that.
Well, and I'll give you this. If this were a playoff game, I wouldn't pick Aaron Rodgers because we know what's happened since he won a Super Bowl. He's 2-4 in the postseason.
If this were a playoff game, it would have nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers as to whether or not I would pick the Packers or not. It would be about that defense. I know what Aaron Rodgers could do. I have no doubts about him.
By the way,
27-24 Packers. That's what I'm going with.
you are.
Yeah,
27-24?
Yeah, how do you feel about it? Why did the Giants let James Jones go? That's what I want to know. And then the guy balled
Well,
out.
they do have Randall and Cruz and Odell
just
Beckham
saying,
Jr.
though.
That would be the reason. Because
And
those
then he
three.
came
How many teams have those three receivers? Those quality, the three.
Let's see if they can catch some balls. We'll talk about that later. Peyton Manning versus Gary Kubiak. What gives? We'll get into that relationship and how it will affect the Broncos' future. That's coming up next. Stay here.